Good evening, everyone. You guys are amazing. I didn't even have to ask you to quiet down. My name is Chris Petrillo. I am one of 8 counselors here at Horace Greeley, and I am also the counseling department chair at this time. I want to welcome you tonight to what we hope will be an informative and enjoyable evening. We're fortunate tonight to have a very special guest by the name of Ms. Lynn Holcomb, who happens to be the Senior Associate Dean of Admissions at Colgate University. I'm going to introduce her in just a few minutes, but before I do, more formally I should say, but before so, I want to introduce a few other really important guests that we have tonight. And actually, before I even do that, I want to say that I want to ask you a question. I don't know if you've heard this rumor, but apparently junior year is thought to be rather stressful as it relates to the college process. Has anybody heard that? Is anybody experiencing that so far? Yeah. Well, I just want to say right out of the gate, probably of all 4 years of your children's high school career, I believe junior year can be one of the most exciting, fun, and really in many, many ways help them to grow in real time as it relates to self-reflection and exploring the college process. So I'm excited about junior year, despite the fact that a lot of people talk about it as being one of the most stressful years they've ever had. Not only the kids, but their parents too. Before I turn over to our wonderful keynote, I want to introduce my colleagues in the counseling office. All of us counselors are here tonight. Rebecca is going to be coming a little bit later because she's trying to split her time between 2 very important meetings. So, Rebecca Mullen is one of our counselors. John Brennan, if you could just do a wave. John Brennan is over there. Tanuke Kolba is here. Bernadette Kenny is here. Kelly Sposito, where's Kelly? Patrick Doherty he's filming for us tonight. And John Dunphy, where's John Dunphy? He's in the back. Okay, great. First up is our new class principal, and we are thrilled to have Kyle Hoser here. He is your class principal, your children's class principal, and we'd love for you to come up and just say a few words, Kyle.
I first want to say thank you to the counselors and Lynn and all of you for being here today. I'm hopeful that you'll hear a lot of helpful information about college and the application process. I will not talk about college, I'll leave that for the experts, but I do want to take a moment and just talk to you about your kids. Quite simply, they're fantastic. They amaze me every single day, and I can't imagine working and having the pleasure to know a more dedicated, hard-working, responsible group of teenagers. And it's for this very reason that when I think about the college process for them, I know they're in very great shape. As you go through the college process, I ask that you remember how special your son or daughter is, and I ask that you take the time to remind them how special they are. This whole college search process is really only as stressful as you allow it to be, and I can't believe that there's only 1 or 2 schools or colleges that your child can be successful at. I really believe the junior class at Greeley can be successful at virtually every single school across the nation. And so instead of worrying about whether your child will get into the school, I ask you to consider 3 things. First, will they grow at that college? Second, will they be supported? And third, will they be happy? And as you go through the process, please remember these 3 questions, and when things get stressful, tell your kids that you love them. Thank you. Hope tonight's very, very informative.
Thank you. Alrighty, next up is our community member, parent, and president of the Horace Greeley Scholarship Fund, Alan Nadell.
Thank you, Ms. Petrillo. Good evening, everyone. College is expensive. For 70 years, the Horace Greeley Scholarship Fund has provided grants, not loans, to Greeley alums to help pay for college. The fund exists to make up the difference between the actual cost of college and all other financial resources available to students and their families, including scholarships, financial aid, and loans. The fund awards grants on a strictly need basis, and the only qualification is that the applicant be a Greeley alum. Last year, we awarded $223,000 in grants to 29 applicants. That's an average grant of $7,400. Some grantees even received $14,000. Grant applications are kept completely private. We use an outside financial aid consultant who reads all of the applications and makes recommendations to a committee consisting of just a few of our board members and district faculty. Grant applications are available on our website, www.hgsf.org, starting in mid-April, and they're due in mid-June. I encourage you to apply, have your students apply, make use of this valuable community resource. Several parents here tonight are on the board of the Scholarship Fund, including Heather Lefarteza, Jen Leventhal, David Perlmutter, Rachel Rader, Jody Falbaum, Dory Cook, and Kathy Hildenbrand. Please feel free to reach out to them with questions or concerns, or of course, there's an info@hgsf.org email address on our website. You can use that also. Also, we have a few events coming up. This Monday, the Share Kids are running the Spelling Bee, 7th Annual Spelling Bee. All proceeds go to the Scholarship Fund, so please come out and support the kids and come to the bee. It raises good money for the Scholarship Fund. And we will host our 2nd Annual Poker Mahjong Tournament on December 2nd. More information to follow on Facebook and email. It's a good fundraiser for us, and we can see who the best poker players and the best Mahjong players in Chappaqua are. Thank you very much.
I do not have a poker face, just saying. That won't work. Alrighty, thank you. We would like now to introduce one of your class parent liaisons, Janet Diamond.
And thank you to the counseling department for putting together this evening. I'd like to start by introducing myself. I'm Janet Diamond, your class of 2018 PTE liaison. Amy Berger, my co-liaison, unfortunately was not able to make it here this evening as she had to work. First of all, I'd like to thank Kyle Hosier for being our class assistant principal extraordinaire. Kyle, your energy, dedication, and enthusiasm is a tremendous gift to our entire class. And a big thank you to our two dedicated teacher advisors, I don't think they're here tonight, Melissa Lugo and Kayla Anderson, who are guiding, helping, and inspiring our Leadership Council to plan many of the class of 2018 events and fundraisers. Thank you for your commitment to our class. Our Leadership Council has been working hard to plan events and fundraisers for the class of 2018. This past September, they organized a very successful class trip to Chelsea Piers and Stanford. Over 150 students attended and all had a great time. The field trip provided our kids with a well-deserved stress relief from junior year and a memorable bonding experience with their peers. Currently, the Leadership Council is working on several fundraising activities, including a school-wide volleyball tournament, a Parents' Night Out babysitting event, and a class of 2018 Greeley Wear sale. And they have already formed a committee to start organizing prom, which will be here before we know it. Next year will be a busy one for our kids and a stressful one as they go through the college application process. But senior year will also prove to be a very exciting year, filled with many great senior year events and activities. But in order for all of these senior year events to be a success, we need your help. We need parent involvement, be it to run the senior musical, or to plan beach day, or to help out with the senior barbecue. So please volunteer. Yes, this is my plea to you. Amy and I will be reaching out to you in the spring, asking you to sign up for the various committees. So please, be on the lookout for the sign-up opportunities. I am a little sad that our kids are growing up and about to leave our homes, but so very excited for the year to come and for the future that awaits them. As parent liaisons, Amy and I are here for all of you. Please feel free to reach out to us with any questions or concerns, or if you'd just like to proactively raise your hand and volunteer. No need to wait for us to ask for your help. Wishing you all a good night, and I hope you enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. All righty. On behalf of, shout out. Shout out to Alexandra Walsh in the back there, who is our person who always makes sure our mics are working and our lights are on and our filming is going well. On behalf of my counseling colleagues, I want to welcome you to what we consider the kickoff meeting tonight together as it relates to the college process, both the exploration part of the process and the application part of the process. We're looking forward to working with your children as they proceed through this very exciting but also very new and sometimes scary time as they look ahead to a new environment, new faces, away from their families. We know that there's a lot of uncertainty in it for them especially at this juncture, and we know that's the case for many of you as well. We will be meeting with all of your students in small groups beginning on November 14th, this coming in the next week and a half or so. Students can find their groups on their second quarter schedules on Infinite Campus, so please help them to do that if they can't find it. They may be looking at the wrong tab. If they're looking at third quarter, they won't see it. If they're looking at first quarter, they won't see it. They have to go to their second quarter to actually find it. We'll start out meeting in groups, and we're going to have a series of about 6 group cycles that'll start on the 14th and may not end, they may not operate in exact succession, but they will run through the course of the next several cycles and possibly out a little bit later into the winter months. Group topics are going to include things like how to use Naviance. Now, and as many of you may already know, Naviance has a lot of different facets to it, but we're going to really jump in there with it and have them look at it in a very analytical sort of way that will hopefully help them to feel really informed about the colleges that may end up on their prospective lists. We're going to talk about the important factors associated with college admissions, the kinds of things that are required, whether it's specific testing, the timelines and the types of applications that might be out there in the world, early applications, binding ones, not binding ones, priority, regular rolling, things like that. And most importantly, we're going to spend a lot of time talking with your kids about how to build a list of colleges that make sense for them. Why would they make sense for them? What are some of the aspects of any given college that would matter? And of course, Lynn Holcomb is going to talk a little bit about that later on this evening. By the way, if students have not yet signed in to their Naviance accounts, please go home and nag them about that. We want them to do it immediately. Naviance is the primary way at this point in their high school career that we communicate very important information, whether it's info sessions, whether it's us reaching out about group work, and a host of other things that we would want as your kids' counselors to go back and communicate with them. That's for the immediate. What becomes even more important is next year, when it's time for them to request college transcripts to go out. We cannot send college transcripts out unless they have utilized, have set themselves up on Naviance, because that is a cumbersome. Well, it's not cumbersome, but it's a process that needs to be followed in order to link things together, which we'll talk about next year. But without their Naviance account set up, none of that can happen. So please be sure to ask them to do that. If they've lost their login material because they never logged in before and they simply misplaced the paperwork, tell them to come on and see Mrs. Campana, our registrar. If they have logged in but they can't remember their password and they don't know how to figure out how to reset it, again, please ask them to come in and see Mrs. Campana in the counseling office, and she will gladly help them to do that. As outlined in the handout you received when you came in tonight, we'll be meeting with families as soon as we've completed our work with our students in groups. That is likely to be very late January or possibly early February as a starting point. And we meet typically January, February, and March are the 3 months where we're very active meeting with juniors and their families. We're going to ask your kids to alert you as to when to call the counseling office to make the appointment to meet with us. Why do we do it that way? Because we do operate in very different steps sometimes than each other. So we can't with certainty say that all of our groups or all of our kids are going to be wanting to go home and ask for you to make appointments at the exact same time. It's going to happen in that window that I just mentioned. But what's critical to us is that we've completed all of our work with your kids before we come to the table and sit down and talk to you in a meaningful way about their list, the list that they may have created with us or without us, your list possibly, and certainly a list that we may have developed for them. We want to be really, really knowledgeable about what they care about and all of the different components of this process so that we have a really terrific family meeting together. Okay, without further delay, it is my great pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Lynn Holtman, Senior Associate Dean of Admissions at Colgate, as mentioned earlier. One of the cool things about doing this night and asking someone to volunteer their time to come out to us is that I get to learn a lot more about the people that are coming to us than I might have ordinarily known. So Lynn is a native of Glen Falls, New York. Excuse me. She received her Bachelor's of Arts degree from Colgate University in 1992. How interesting. Upon graduating from Colgate, Lynn entered the higher education industry, working for an educational consulting firm in Washington, D.C., where she worked on areas of education from curriculum and design to marketing strategies. While in D.C., Lynn also worked for George Washington University's School of Business in graduate admissions and received her Master's of Arts degree in Education and Human Development from George Washington University in 1996. After some time in graduate admissions at GW, Lynn found herself back at her alma mater promoting what she truly believes in, which is a liberal arts education. Lynn has been at Colgate for 17 years and currently serves as the Senior Associate Dean of Admission. Lynn is very active in professional networks as well. She could easily be seen and heard from by way of the NACAC, and I'm not going to try to give all the acronyms, but it's a counseling, nationally related counseling association, as well as the New York State Association for Counselors, College and High School, where she serves as a conference presenter. She has served on the faculty at the New York State ACAC Summer Institute, which I actually went to many, many years ago, as did many of my colleagues. And while at Colgate, Lynn has also been involved in Colgate's Middle States Accreditation Review and the NCAA re-accreditation peer review team. That is really, really wonderful. Lynn's tremendous breadth of experience and expertise will undoubtedly be invaluable to all of us. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Lynn Holtman.
Well, good evening. I tend to walk and use my hands a lot. Can you guys hear me in the back?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. If at any point you can, just raise your hand and I'll find my way back over to the microphone. So I have the dubious task tonight of spending about 30 minutes with you and telling you everything you need to know about college admissions. So we'll see how that goes. And I definitely have some highlights. What I love to hear is that the energy that started this evening tonight with messages of have fun, make sure your child is looking for the right fit, make sure that you're working on this together as a family team. That is the best approach. I want to get a gauge of who's here in the crowd tonight. For how many of you are you sending this junior child of yours? Is this the first child to go off to college? Okay, so a lot of first-time parents in the process. For those of you who have already launched a child onto college, hopefully spread the good news that it does work. Everyone will have a home. They will not be in your house forever. Although right now you may want that, it's not actually a good thing for the lifetime of a child to stay living in their parents' home. The one thing that I want to start with tonight is to encourage you to go back to the basics. If you're going to venture out and buy a new car, you would definitely do some research. If you're doing your taxes, you get yourself comfortable with the lingo of tax jargon that you is understanding the characteristics, understanding the qualities that you and your child should be looking at when you go into the college process. What happens when you start talking about colleges is names start getting dropped. College names. This name, the neighbor goes here, your cousin goes here, I went here, your grandparents went here, and you start talking about names that come with reputations, that come with perceived ideas and concepts of what that school is about. You need to take a step back, actually 2 or 3 steps back, and start to talk about the qualities that you need to be looking for. You also have to approach this in a way that a high school junior is ready to talk about it. Your child could be incredibly intelligent, mature, sophisticated, but I can guarantee you, if you start talking about college majors, if you start saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? What is your dream job? You're going to lose them. They're going to be gone. They're going to be venturing to their video games in their bedroom, to Snapchatting with their friends. They'll be rolling their eyes, and you suddenly, in a very short period of time, shut down conversation about the college process. You need to approach this with what they know. In order to have the focus, as it should be, being on the right fit, that's not a name. The fit is about how far away from home is this college going to be? What type of learning environment do you learn best in? What classes do you like? What makes a great teacher? Who inspires you? Get them talking about the learning process. Get them talking about different college environments. A college of 50,000 students is very different than 5,000. Keep in mind, though, this child that you're working with right now has never been to college. They might go visit their cousin, they might have been on college campuses. The best thing that you can do, you're in an incredible location. Within an hour or an hour and a half, you can get to any type of college. Small regional, large urban, suburban. Take them on college campuses that don't have any impact at this point associated with a name and a college list. And let them just feel what the differences are. Make it fun. You know, go for lunch first, go to a diner, make it fun, and make it not about the college process and names and a college list, but make it about discovery. Make it about those factors of what will it feel like to hop on a plane to go to college versus being an hour away from home. When you go to a school that has 30,000, there's rah-rah school spirit and the marching band is bigger than liberal arts first year class enrollment. But your intro to psychology class may have 4,000 people in it. You may not have all grown up here forever, but they're at Horace Greeley. Their teachers know their names. They're in small classes. They have educated faculty. They're asked a lot in terms of expectations in the classroom. What is that going to mean for what they want in college? Those are the types of conversations your child can engage in now. Talk about the learning environment. Talk about what inspires them. Talk about their favorite classes, but don't have it be college names. Don't have it be college majors. And don't have it be about what career field they want to pursue. You can engage those conversations as you go into your college search, but to get things started, you want to keep it broad. There is going to be 10, 15, maybe 20% of high school students that really do know and have known since they were 4 years old that they want to be a doctor, a teacher, a therapist. Those are the unique ones. And know your child and know if that's the direction you can go. But for now, keep it broad. And honestly, you're going to learn a lot as well. I'm assuming the majority of this group here tonight is college educated. Maybe not everyone, but most people, probably 2 or 4 year colleges. College is not the same as when you went. Don't assume that. Don't assume that you know everything about college. And go through this process of education together and ask yourself about those qualities. That's going to be, if you set the stage for this to be a fun, interactive exercise that doesn't have one right answer, you're already far, far ahead of your peers and other family units because you're taking the stress out of it from the beginning. Two other things before we move on to your next task is when you go home tonight, tell your children how fun this night was and how excited you are about getting started tomorrow. If you go home and start rattling off, we need to do this, you may be overwhelmed. If you look at that list of what needs to happen in the next 6 to 18 months, it's a lot. But I have one thing to tell you. You're not applying to college. Your child is applying to college. Your job is to guide them. Your job is to mentor them. Your job is to be their advocate and their supporter and their cheerleader. But your job is not to do. And that's going to be really, really hard for you. Really hard. We're going to continue to tell this. This will be a constant theme. Over dinner tonight, it was great to hear from the counseling team. We're going to say the same thing that colleges are saying. This is about the student. If you don't let your student own it, you're not going to get buy-in. And that starts with creating the right conversations after you go home tonight. Maybe don't even talk about it, but if they ask you, say it was super fun, and you're really excited, and you can't wait for it. The second thing, there is something you can do. Parents need to do the financial assessment. Love the speaker said, college is expensive. It is. Parents, finances are stressful. You know, you're fortunate, you're in a wonderful suburban community here. You may or may not want your child to know how much you make each year. You may or may not want them to know if you're anxious about the finances of applying for college. But you owe it to them to do an honest assessment at this point and know if finances are going to influence their final decision. I work with a lot of students from across the country. Most specifically, a lot of my areas are in the Northeast at this point. And every year, there's a handful of students who had no idea that their final college decision was going to have to be determined by how much financial aid or scholarship or merit-based aid. The reason you have to do that exercise now is because that will inform the range of colleges, the range of choices, conversations with the counseling staff when you meet with parents. You don't have to disclose your tax returns to your child, but you need to know how you're approaching this process. Needing financial aid and financial support to go to college is fine. The majority of American college-bound students need that, but have that honest conversation as a family unit now. So if you go home and you're itching to do something, have that understanding. Is your family unit, whatever comprises your family unit, how you're going to approach the financing of college education. Every college is going to have a net price calculator on their website. If you haven't already gone through that with an accountant or in your own experience, do it. Get the sticker shock over with as early as you can and know how you're going to approach this. And if you are stressed about any part of the college process or finances, you need to find a way to protect that, remove that stress from your child. You may not think that they're watching you, but they are. They are watching every reaction you have about the college process. They're going to be taking cues from you. And if you go about this with energy and fun and excitement, you're going to find a very different child on the other end of the process. Once you've done that research, and it's great that your students are meeting first with your counselors in a few weeks to have these conversations, and then when you have the parent meeting with counselors, they're going to be able to share with you what they've learned, what seems to be standing out, and you can have some parallel conversations at home. The last thing you want to do, though, is make this something you talk about every single night at dinner. Mentally, give yourself a checklist of how often you can talk about this. If you do it too much, again, you're going to shut them down. Give them time. It is really early. I've recruited in pretty much every state in the United States at some point in my 17 years at Colgate. Westchester is like no other. It's a special place. It starts the college process incredibly early. If you don't visit colleges until late late spring or next summer, you are still beyond 50% of high school students going to college. So do not get caught up in what you see around you. The only deadline in this process is application deadlines next year in the winter. There is a lot of flexibility between now and then, so work with that. When you start to visit colleges, it's exciting. You want to go do that. And again, what I'm going to say is this is an action step now. High school students are busy. Greeley is a busy place with a ton of extracurriculars. The kids are living every ounce of this high school community. So you may think, how in the world are we going to do this? That is something you can do now. Maybe not share with your students just yet, but look at the calendar. Look at what Greeley's high school calendar looks like for the spring of junior year. And start to hold some time where you can go and maybe start the college process, except for your little fun exploratory, going to breakfast first, figuring out locations and ideas. But find some time. Doesn't mean you run to your child and have them put it in their calendar right now so they know on April 21st you're going to visit colleges and oh my God, where are we going to go? Don't go there. But in your family calendar, with your husband, with yourself, with any extended members of the family or whatever your family unit is, know that that's protected. Hold that. And let that be about time with your child to begin to visit colleges. When you go to visit colleges, and I'm not going to spend too much time talking about developing a list, except that developing a college list is about developing colleges that fit the exercises of how your student best learns, where they want to go, the type of learning environment, the type of students, the challenges, the experiences they want to have will match the list. This isn't about creating a list of colleges that have certain names on a list and that's where I'm applying. Your child should be excited about every school on their list, and there should be a range of selectivity that may indicate how easy or hard it is to get into those colleges. You have an incredible counseling team that knows what they're doing. Many, many high school kids across the country would die to have the support that you have here. Trust them. They've been through the process. They know. They have great relationships with college representatives like myself, and they'll call, they'll ask questions, and they'll give you really good guidance. When you visit colleges, or even when you're developing that list, allow yourself to be surprised. There are over 3,000 different colleges in this country, and there are going to be colleges that you have never heard of, that are not in your social network, that are incredible colleges. Know what your little tics are. My kids know when I stop talking, because I talk a lot, that I'm really mad. So if you're in a situation and someone brings up a name and you have that nose twitch or the eye roll or they're going to see that's not a good school. They're going to look at your cues. Be positive about everything. Have private conversations, ask questions, do your own research. But be an open book in this class. Doesn't mean visit 40 colleges. Be an open book and ideas and creating this college list. When you begin to think about visiting colleges, you're going to find in a variety of colleges that there are a number of things you can do. One tip, college tours are great to do at colleges. They get you out of the admission office. They are done by a current student. That is something you should do at every college. If there are Horace Greeley students or individuals that your student may know from high school that they initiate that they may want to contact. Sometimes it's awkward when as a parent you say, oh, so-and-so's child goes there and we're going to meet up with them for lunch. If they don't want to spend time with that student on the campus, that suddenly becomes awkward. Make sure your student is the one suggesting some of those. And just because a college offers information sessions, campus tours, an opportunity to visit a class, to meet with a faculty member, to have lunch on campus, doesn't mean you have to do it all. Some students aren't ready for that. The first range of college visits should be very non-committal to some extent, and low commitment among the students. Too many students find themselves in situations they're not quite ready for. Very few high school juniors are ready to talk to a college professor about a particular major unless they know for some reason there's something very specific. Maybe later on, maybe in the senior year, maybe when they're deciding which college to go to. But just because a college offers you that opportunity does not mean you have to do it. It's actually probably recommended that you don't do everything. When you're starting this as a junior, think about the college tours. Think about an information session, which is typically going to be a broad overview of the institution. And make sure you empower your student to be the one in touch with the university. Most of us have online registration processes, so your child can do it at 12:30 at night, which is when they do things. They can go on and register. Let them do that. Let them, again, take some responsibility. You're not, again, the doer. Give them broad timelines. And if you let them do it, don't critique how they did it. The reason it's good to have the students do this, however, is parents register. They register with their email address. They register with their cell phone information. And then suddenly the student is taken out of the equation. As a parent, I know you want to know everything that's going on, but the communication really needs to be with the student. And when you step foot on campus, please let your child walk in the front door first. Let them register themselves at the information desk, and let them have the first reaction. This is going to kill you. It will kill you. You have to sit on your hands and not talk as you're driving 4 hours to the next college. But you know what? It sort of breaks my heart when I'm on sessions and I'm in the lobby and you see this angst among families. It's like, cherish this. You know, you're not going to have a lot of unprotected time with your children before they go off to college. And honestly, picture this as a road trip. You know, picture this as a road trip with your kids that you've already had your calendar planned in advance so you can do it. Big $1 million questions. When is the best time to visit a college campus? And I always say the best time is when you can take your child and they're going to enjoy the opportunity. Getting them up at 4 in the morning to drive 4 hours to Colgate to do a Saturday information session and tour and leave at 12:30 to be back home for the football game that they have to be on campus by 5 o'clock is not going to bode well for the student experience and excitement about visiting colleges, and I can tell you they're not going to like Colgate at the end of the day. You've got to give them a chance. They're tired, they're busy, they're overworked. But let it go and let it be fun. Have them be involved in where do you want to stay? Where are we going to go to dinner? They might sleep for 5 hours in the car. And you know what? If you just let them, it might be 3 weeks later over dinner someday, they'll say, you know what? I really liked X, Y, and Z. That was a really cool place. It takes a lot of patience to let them get there on their own. But they will. And if you don't let them get there on their own, and you're the first one to say, these are our list of questions. Every college, regardless of whether it's a community college or the most selective school in the country, will have some type of point person for this region or Horace Greeley that the student can follow up with at any time. If they don't have 10 questions for the tour guide at the end of the tour, it's okay. It is actually really, really okay. The tour guide probably wants to go to class and finish the lab and write the paper they have to do. But that's okay. When the admission officer leading the session hands out business cards, don't trip over your child to get the business card. I mean, I say this jokingly, but it happens every single day in our office. And sometimes we think we should video it and like show it back to you because I know that's actually not what you want to do. That's not the impression you want to send. Every time you make one of those judgments though, you're letting your students see that they don't know the process. They've got. Sometimes it's later than you actually want it to be. I've successfully because they're in college, but my sister, I'm one of 5, so I've done a lot of college counseling with nieces and nephews, and last year when we were at my parents' house and my nephew is a high school senior and I had been working with him and not really going anywhere, December 31st, rolling around on the floor in the guest bedroom trying to meet January 1 deadlines, I thought, okay, Lord help me, this is going to be a challenge. But you know what? He knew everything he wanted to do. My sister was like, he has no idea. When I took him away from his mother, sat down with him with a cookie, plate of cookies, that always helps, cookies and naps, snacks and naps usually help a lot in this. We were able to find a list and he knew exactly what he wanted. So let that happen. Hopefully it won't be December 31st when there's January 1st deadlines. Hopefully you can expedite that a little bit more. But all of those pieces are going to be really important. There's a lot of talk in higher education right now, or you may hear it, about demonstrated interest and what that means. And I want to define that for you. Demonstrated interest is used by some colleges to actually track the interactions that a high school student has with a college. And they may or may not use that in the admissions process to try to anticipate likelihood of enrollment. I love working at Colgate. We don't look at demonstrated interest. I get to speak with students because they want to speak to me, and I want to speak to them. It's great to visit college campuses because it helps you get a sense of place, but it's also important to know that with demonstrated interest, sometimes things become checklists and things you have to do for the wrong reasons. But it is a really important task for you to understand that may or may not play a role. It's a fair question to ask. Most colleges are very upfront with that on their website, or even if you ask them. But as you're visiting colleges and having fun and making the road trip and planning well, you also want to make sure you're starting to understand some of the facts and details. Everything is on a college website. If any family member is going to take notes or keep a notebook, it needs to be the student. This is when they can actually put their phone to really good use. Everybody has a phone, usually nicer than the parents' phone. And there's note sections. They can take notes, they can keep track of things, or they can do that later on in the process. There is no perfect way to go through the college process, and let your child figure that out. One thing that's going to happen as you're thinking about the college process is you might do this in a couple different rounds. You're going to start exploring, figuring out in your junior year, maybe over the summer, and then you might get to your point in your senior year, the student's senior year, where they may want to do a revisit. And that's where an overnight visit, if a college requires interviews, it might be helpful. That might be where they want to talk to a faculty member about a particular program. But I'm also going to give you a tip. If colleges say something is required, you should do it. Okay? Pretty straightforward. Colleges say something is recommended, you should do it. If colleges say something is not required, guess what? It's not required. And I think sometimes there's like, but is it really not required? It's really not required. And if colleges say interviews are non-evaluative, guess what? They're non-evaluative. And I know it sounds funny when I state it like this, but I can guarantee you at least half of this group will call a college and clarify that is something really not required in the admissions process. We're not trying to make this difficult for you. We're actually pretty clear. If we want something, we're going to tell you we want it. We're going to say it's required. At Colgate specifically, we allow students to submit the SAT or the ACT. Twice today, before I left to drive down here, I had calls, ED applicants. Now you say you take both. Do you have a preference? No. If we had a preference, guess what? We would say we only will take the ACT test score. And I know in the high stakes that you're feeling, you want to make sure you're doing everything right, but trust the process. If a college wants something from you, we are not shy. We will ask you, we will tell you again, we will tell you again, and we'll send reminders to your children that we need that in the process. But don't try to make it more complicated than it is. It's actually relatively straightforward. When you get to the application timeline, I might just touch upon this briefly because honestly there's a lot to think about in this child's junior year and applications are really like a year away at this point. But we've talked about the student really being the agent in this conversation. The more, the better you do this experience in junior year of letting your child think about what they're interested in without names and without majors and careers, you're helping them become self-aware of who they are. If you sit down and say to your child, okay, now we really want to talk about like who you are and your goals and where you're going, again, it's not the right approach, but you're subtly going to help them get there. This is all great preparation for thinking about interview preparation, preparing for the personal statement in the college essay. All of these experiences, if you do junior year well, with the right approach, and you're keeping open dialogue, and you're keeping it light and fun and happy, I can guarantee you every child will have a college to go to. They're not going to be shut out. They'll have a college to go to. Then the application process is going to be that much easier. There is a lot of work. Know how your child works. If they're a procrastinator, they're going to procrastinate in the college process. Just own it now. Know that it happened. Know that they'll be pulling an all-nighter before whatever deadline is offered by the school. You're not going to change who they are because they're applying to college. If they're the child who gets things done 2 weeks in advance so they can proofread it, you can probably anticipate that's how they're going to approach the college process. But if you nag and you push, they're going to shut down. So find a way, when you have that inclination to ask a question about college and it's not your mental day to talk about colleges, go for a walk, go grocery shopping, do some online shopping, whatever is your thing, find a book, call a friend, but make sure it doesn't become your relationship with your child, okay? It's an incredible opportunity for them. And think back, I'm sure all of you have such incredible memories of that time of your life when you were in college, and it's exciting that your child's going to embark on that, and let them do that. If you're sad about them going away, don't talk with them. You can let them know you're going to miss them. But don't let them have to worry about you. I find a lot of students when they're trying to figure out like how far away from home do I go, they're sometimes worried about how their parents are doing. If they tell their parents they're going across the country. Because they've seen so much emotion from their family members. So again, all of this is about being in check and understanding what the greater good is. And the purpose is about helping your child be in the best environment, regardless of what that name is, where they're going to flourish, they're going to become the best person they can be. It feels high stakes, but understand that college admissions and admission offers are not a judgment on your child. Admission numbers and applications have gotten crazy. The world is shrinking. There's more international applicants. Students are more mobile within the United States. There's more people looking at colleges all over the country. This isn't a reflection on your child in terms of who they are and their ability to be successful if they don't get into a college. It's also not a reflection on you as a parent and your ability to be a good parent. So keep that in check as well. They will have some options if you listen to counselors and have that full range of experiences. Most of the requirements in the college process are going to be pretty static. Variety of college options in terms of application processes. The most common is actually the common application. The nice thing about the common application, there also are, some colleges have their own application. This is a great example where if colleges have a preference of their own application or the common app, some schools only have their own. And that's because they have a preference and they want it to be there. If they don't and they accept both, then obviously they're going to do a common app the same as they would their own application. Most of the high school transcript and most of the high school, the college application is actually determined by other people or something that's already happened. Their high school transcript, by the time they apply to college, is done, except for their senior year. Senior year is very important. Don't start telling them that now. And also when they have a big history test, don't tell them how important junior year is in the college admissions process. That doesn't help anxiety levels, Again, shush, keep it quiet in the process. And also what might be a low grade in junior fall can be averaged out with good mid-years, let them evolve throughout the year, and in most cases we see just cumulative end of the year experiences that we're looking at. High school transcript though outside of senior year is going to be relatively done. Standardized testing, and again your counselors will go over preferred and ideal timelines that you might start to take in junior spring, maybe repeat in senior fall, will be done by the point of the application process. Recommendations are done by other people. The only thing the student really has to focus on in terms of the application preparation is going to be writing their personal statement and writing any supplements that are required or any individual unique college applications that are required. I can't say enough. Everything that we've talked about even with junior year is it has to be the student's work, it has to be the student's voice, and it has to be genuine. We just went through reader training for the last 3 days, and we retrain our staff every year, even though some of us have been doing this for decades, and it's always such an incredible reminder when we went through a sample of 10 sample applications, how different every single student reads. And we actually read, not from Horace Greeley, some acts from last year, there was a school group of 5 different students from one high school, and we have one new staff member, and his comment was, "This is amazing." He's like giddy, like a kid. He's like, "This is amazing," because it all reads so differently, because every part of the application was done well and was done in a really genuine approach. There is so much conversation about the college essay. Wow, it gets a lot of conversation points, which I get. Sort of the student voice in the application process, but it's important to understand how colleges use it. At Colgate, we don't evaluate interviews. Our interview process is non-evaluative. So for us, this is basically what we learn about the student, what humanizes the application. Every college is going to use the essay in minorly different ways. If the school requires evaluative interviews, they might be looking at the essay for more of the student's writing ability, their style, how it complements their interview. So you really need to understand what the purpose of the essay is at various colleges, and that's a totally appropriate question to ask when you're visiting campuses, follow-up question for an admission officer. The other piece I just want to mention is that many colleges, because the common application is just that, it's common to all the colleges the students apply to, it's hard for us to know what the student knows about our institution. So if we have supplemental questions, which in a student mind equals additional essay, more writing, that I will do on the day before it's due, these are really important. And one tip that I always say to students is that if you're applying to 6 or 7 or 8, whatever the recommended numbers of schools are that students are applying to, you should work on 1 supplement a week during October, November, whatever the time frame is that you're working on. Because colleges do look at those supplements as a way to know, what do you know about our institution? Because once again, this is all going to go back to fit. Many people are focused on college acceptance rates, how many students apply, how many are admitted. I actually want to give you a tip and a suggestion that you focus a little bit more on retention rates. How many students actually stay at that institution after they're admitted, and how many actually graduate in 4 years. The real success and celebration comes when your child graduates from college. They've had an incredible experience. You can market the growth that they've had during those 4 years of college, and then you can celebrate that they're ready to get a job and live on their own. And again, just what we talked about. But getting into college isn't necessarily when you celebrate. Yes, they have a plan, but it is all about the fit. And those indications of retention tells you how many students go there, how many stay, what is the happiness, it implies a lot. It implies support systems. It implies mentorship, advising, pathways for students to be successful. There is a very delicate conversation that happens around the college admissions process about disclosing what I sometimes like to say, sort of the weaknesses or differences. I'm a huge advocate and always will be to families to disclose. Learning disability, social emotional issues, physical challenges, limitations, anything that you can share with us that is going to help you transition to our college is going to be beneficial to the student. And I know it's a really difficult and sensitive conversation to families about how much do I share with them of something that may make me different or needing something more in the process. If it's who your child is, if it's how they learn, if it's part of who they are, it can be really helpful for us to know. We're trained as professionals to be objective in the college process. We care a lot about the students. It's hard working in a selective institution. We admit about 1 out of every 4 applicants that applies to Colgate. Realistically, at least half of the students that apply to Colgate could come and be equally incredible students. This is a tough process. But we try to find that best fit. It's not just a numbers game. It's not about gaming it. What do I do? What activities? Oh, they're really going to want an oboe player, so my child has to take oboe lessons and try out for area all-state and be the oboe player. Let them just be high school students and evolve. That's going to mean they're going to quit activities, they're going to join new activities, probably going to fall in love for the first time and have heartbreak and fail a chemistry exam. Like, life is going to happen in high school. And let that evolve, have conversations, teach them to be accountable, more importantly, teach them to be resilient. For many students, the first major disappointment they have in their life is not getting into a college of their choice. And helping them see that they have options and it's not the end of the world and that they will rebound and find a place to be happy is one of the best life skills you can offer them. You can call a college office or talk to your counselors and try to understand maybe why something didn't happen, but to dwell on it, to not let it go and not let your child move on and be happy, I see from my perspective, the students actually deal with that disappointment so much better than the parents sometimes do in the college process because they see their friends equally not getting into amazing places and they say, my friend's great. They didn't get into every place they applied. But you've got to, as you start this process, being open-minded, being supportive, creating an environment of dialogue, checking your own emotions, letting this be about the student first, you're going to find that as you go through every stage, you're going to have better communication, more honest dialogue, and hopefully the best fit at the end of the process. There are a lot of points that I just very briefly touched upon, but I think one of the hopes that we have for this evening is that we would have some good time for Q&A. For questions and answers, whether that be directed towards me or the counseling team. I think we'd like to open the floor at this point for that portion of the evening to let you ask the questions that are currently on your mind.
But first, we want to say thank you so much. Okay, so let's open up to questions, and maybe we can turn this mic on to this way. If you need this mic, if not, questions?
Hi, thank you very much. I'm curious about what actually goes on in the admissions office when that flood of applications comes and there's a handful of you and those thousands of applications. You know, is there software that you put all these applications through and 75% just go to the shredder and then you split out the other 25%?
Great idea. That's actually a And I'm going to talk about the perspective of the small or large college. That's my most basic experience. I will tell you things can be very different at a large urban, or not always urban, but just a large institution. But what you'll find when applications come in, we're actually prepping right now, as I said, with reader training. Our early decision deadline is November 15th, so there are lots of excitement going on in the college admissions office at Colgate. So last year we received about 8,600 applications. Guess how many we got within 48 hours of the January 15th deadline? Who wants to guess? 5,000? 8,000? Oh my God, I have to quit my job. Not quit 8,000. 6-3. We received just under 3,000 applications within the 48 hours prior to our January 15th deadline. So, here we are, pretty much our dean of admission is packing up his office like, okay, this isn't going too well, not sure where we are, hovering at 5,000 applications 48 hours before our deadline. But everything's online, it is an automated process, and kids just wait. I don't think they're creating their application at that late date, but they want to check it one more time, or they let it sit and they come back to it and make some updates. Every college is going to be a little bit different, but liberal arts colleges really pride themselves on what's called a holistic review, which means we will read everything, and our bound in our philosophy is that we will read everything that is submitted in the application. Record last year for one of my years, again, proud to say it was not Horace Greeley, but I had a student submit 12 letters of recommendation, a science abstract, a writing abstract, and an additional essay because they couldn't decide which one to submit. A little too much. But I did touch every piece of paper in that application. Traditionally in most colleges there's a multi-tiered review process. So things will come in electronically. We do read on computer. We don't print anything out. Colgate is actually incredibly sustainable and very proactive in sustainability, so we actually don't have much of a printing budget at our institution. And everything is done electronically. The first reads on applicants at most institutions are really going to be more of a brief overview of the academic quality, because honestly, the academic preparation of a student is really the most important indication of successful transition to that institution and the academic expectations. And then the second read is where we really focus on the whole part of the process. Academics combined with social, personal, recommendations, really bringing it all into context. Those second reads, the real deep part of the reads, are actually done by that individual who is the regional representative of that for that institution, for that region. I've been reading really up for 10 years at this point, so I get your grading system, I understand that, I know the course curriculum, and that's a real benefit, because I'm able to understand the curriculum, the options, I can understand the rigor of the curriculum, and I also understand just the community here. You can see how students have engaged or disengaged with the high school community, mostly engaged in the culture that is Greeley. And then from there might be some applicants that actually don't need a lot of conversation because they're so strong, they're a great fit, they can get passed on to the dean of admission to sign off on. There are going to be some students that after that review really just aren't going to be incredibly competitive in the pool for a variety of, traditionally, academics drive that, but then there's going to be a large band in the middle, and we have admissions committee. We literally sit around the table and talk about applicants and who's going to be the best fit, and then traditionally we will admit, we will deny, and we will put some students on the wait list. Waitlist is just not meant to be torture. It's not our way of saying, aha, we're going to make you wait even longer. But we're working on an enrollment model that is based on 17 and 18-year-olds making decisions. Talk about that being your livelihood. That is, not really predictable. We can look at historical trends to see, best judgment, but at the end of the day, we don't know, and again, because at Colgate we don't look at demonstrated interest, we don't know predictability or the likelihood of yield. So we use the wait list once the enrollment deadline comes of May 1st to use that as a bit of a waiting period, see how our class comes in, and then if we have space to fill in our class, we're a selective institution. institution, we're very lucky. We tend to make waitlist offers and are fortunate to have people come join our community and be incredible parts of the campus experience. Does that help? But I actually think that's a fair question to ask at colleges. Ask how they review applications, because that will change in various institutions. Questions?
I have a question. Hi, Lynn. How are you?
How are you?
Good. Can you talk about the impact of the early with the financial aid, the impact in your office this year?
Sure. So the question relates to the FAFSA and changes in the FAFSA, which is the federal application for student aid, and that allows students to be eligible for government loans in the student process. It actually has changed our policy that Colgate is a need-based institution, and traditionally we have only required the CSS profile, which is put out by the College Scholarship Service and used by a lot of private institutions. We have actually started this year requiring the FAFSA as well, because the FAFSA allows students to use their prior year tax information. And the CSS will ask for current year and projected tax information, so it can give us a better exposure to a family's financial health over more than just 1 year. So we're hoping that this is going to give us a better opportunity and a better experience for us to see the trends of financial health of a family over not just 1 year but 2 years, and use that in hopefully making better financial aid offers for our students. Did that answer your question?
It did. Because of the timing that it's available after October 1st, the notification of the package come out earlier than it had been.
Yeah, so the question is, now with the FAFSA, it's available for families as of October 1st of your child's senior year. And I do think this has had an impact on a lot of colleges. We've been very fortunate at Colgate that we have always shared financial aid awards at the point of admission. And that's partially because we require the CSS profile, which has always expected families to estimate their income for the current tax year. So we've always shared that. But I know for many colleges now, it's giving them the flexibility, if they've only required the FAFSA, to be able to get aid awards with offers of admission, or at least in an earlier time frame. Because of various financial aid policies, application policies and deadlines tend to be relatively uniform. There might be some processes that are, there's a few different terms. One is called rolling admissions, where if you submit your application, it'll be reviewed as it's submitted. There are other schools that have set deadlines. Students will ask me a lot. There's a student who's contacted me a few times, submitted their application on September 1st, told them at that time, great, yay, it's done. We're not reading yet, and won't be reading yet until November. But if that student had been in a rolling school, they would be reading and being able to get some decisions back. Colleges also have something called early decision. I'm sure it's well known in your high school community. Early decision is a binding admissions process with an institution, which means that if you apply in an early binding contract, that if you are admitted, you are expected to enroll at that institution. Some colleges also have something called early action. Early action is an opportunity for your child to apply in an earlier timeline, get an answer earlier, but they're not required to deposit traditionally until the universal deadline of May 1st. So that's, a nice opportunity to say, hey, I have a college admission in my back pocket. This is actually going to work out. But you actually should approach both of those, early action and early decision, not just as a game of shopping in college admissions, but it should be very thoughtful about where you would want to go, your likelihood of enrollment, and opportunities. There are definitely some caveats to that with restrictive early action and a variety of other terms, but I'll leave that full list for your counselors to share with the students. I actually really want to encourage you as parents. It's good to educate yourself on that timeline, but try not to talk about early apps now. Let your child go through the process, see what is standing out, and then learn about the early policies. You are in a high school and in a community where a lot of students, because you're starting the process so early, do feel comfortable and confident in making early options in their senior year, but you also want to empower your student to know that if they really don't have a top choice a year from now, that it's actually okay as well. So let the search drive, are we talking regular, are we talking early? Educate yourself, good to know the terminology, but don't have that be part of the conversation. There'll be enough of that among your peers, you don't want to add to that.
Hi, I had just had a quick question. Yeah, you talked about demonstrated interest. Clearly, if there's a college that has demonstrated interest, you're going to want to respond after you have a tour or whatever. What about those that don't? Would you recommend students to write a thank you note or shoot an email or phone call, for those that don't say that they have demonstrated interest?
Right, so the question is, if a school doesn't have demonstrated interest, should you still make those touch points? And I would say yes, because you want your son or daughter to be that person that's going to send a thank you note when they grow up. It's sort of a lost art, actually, in a lot of this society. So, think about the life skills you want your child to learn in this process. And that's where letting them walk in, even if they're groggy because they slept in the car, give them a minute to wake up, and let them be the one to walk in, introduce themselves, verify their data sheet, talk to the administrative assistant at the front desk. I can guarantee you the interactions they have with the person at the front desk of the admission office is non-evaluative. Okay? It's not going to have an impact on the admissions decision. Sometimes we want it to be, but it's not. So let them stumble. Let them stumble. They will make mistakes. They're human. They're kids. They really are kids. Sometimes you feel like they're really grown up. And then you see them in these moments, and you're like, oh my God, you're so young. Let them stumble a little bit because it's not going to hurt anything. But in those situations, if you want your child to write an adult a thank you note that they interacted with as a life lesson, do that. But have them do it because they should, for the character reasons, not because this will look good to the college. Make sure the message is about when you interact with an adult who's done something that you had a positive experience, you should say, hey, that was a wonderful experience. Because as a good human in character, you should not have it be, oh, you need to let them know and you need to write and have it become a checklist item. The other thing that I just have to say, please do not write emails on behalf of a child, pretending to be your child. It happens more than you think. And you were sitting here saying, I would never do that. We'll check in a year from now and see if you've actually done that at any point. But there are times when you're like, I don't think 17-year-olds write like that. I think I do, and I'm 46, so I have a feeling this is not a child writing this email. But sometimes I think parents are so concerned that, oh my God, my child didn't do this and we have to do this. It'll be okay. And they're actually going to learn a lot about accountability in this process. And that's good too. Hold them accountable. Let them see what happens when, and you don't want to be oh my God, they won't get into college if I let them do this on their own. If you don't let them have some stumbles in this process by owning it, just imagine what can happen when you leave them alone on a college campus if you haven't given them any responsibility to learn how to navigate that in the application process. Then you're not setting them up to be successful living in a college dorm away from home on their own.
I have a question. Taking off from the fact that you said that you received 3,000 applications 48 hours prior to January, right? In 2013, the Common App had crashed. That's what I think. So
we all remember it.
So I'm just wondering, so that you don't have the situation happen to our child when we apply, isn't it better that they apply a little earlier so that you don't have an inundation of applications?
I mean, in a just world, absolutely. Absolutely. But I don't know if you're going to re-hardwire your child unless you're the one hitting submit. And you shouldn't be the one hitting submit. The best is when parents call, and I'm making some jokes about this, but it actually is quite serious, and I'm laughing because it happens quite a bit. The best is when they call and say, we're having trouble with a common application. not be having trouble with Common Application. Your child should be having, and I can guarantee you if you turn technology issues over to your 17 and 18-year-old, they will not be having trouble with the process. Parents are having trouble. But yes, I mean, it is honestly ideal so you don't run into those last-minute issues with the Common App. But if the Common App were to crash, colleges would extend their, I mean, it won't. Most colleges have multiple application vendors. We're part of 2 applications, the Common Application and the Coalition Application. There's also Universal, some schools have their own. So very, very few schools are in a position where they only have one application. And if there is a technical glitch, colleges will work with the Common App to extend deadlines. We do that with hurricanes, snowstorms, power outages. You guys had a great year a few years ago, like every other day you had no power. So, you know, we work with regions of the country as needed, and we work with our vendor providers in the application process.
Thanks for your comments. I think you made a good point about just getting through the college. It's a big thing. So I just wanted you to share your thoughts on what's your experience from when the child gets there to when they leave. Do you see anything at the front end that ends up surprising you at the end, or vice versa? Is there any sort of pattern? You see the whole arc. I'm kind of interested.
Your 4 years.
Yeah, your experience of what you see at the beginning versus the end. If there's any sort of pattern of takeaway from that.
Yeah, so the question is about the 4 years of the student experience on the college. What sort of trends that we have seen? Honestly, what I see is parents who have honestly let their children learn how to be resilient and fix their own mistakes are so much better off in the college. And I mention that because things won't go right all the time. A little bit of protections. You're at a public high school, your kids come home every night, you know exactly where they are, you may can track their phones, you know, you really know what they're doing. And you have, you know, they're independent and they're individuals, but you have a pulse. You can call a parent or two in a quick moment, know what's going on in your community. When they're away at college, you don't have as much of that. They may, for the first time in their life, get to see on paper. In the age of technology, what's going to happen is before they have time to process, they're going to text you or the mother and tell them they just failed an exam, they're dumb, they're stupid, they shouldn't be at college, they're miserable, they want to drop the class. You know, and if you buy into that emotion and try to fix it, call the professor, call the dean, get involved. You're not helping the student learn how to fix their own issues. And the students who are thriving after 4 years are the ones whose parents let them stumble a little bit in the beginning. When your child is homesick, and you may not think they will be, but someone will have that blue day on a college campus, and you let it unravel you, and then you become worried about everything they're doing, then they're going to begin to, again, feel like, okay, maybe this is this daunting, maybe this is this overwhelming. If you want to cry about them being sad, do it after you hang up the phone. Doesn't mean you call them an hour later, but you've got to let your student figure out how to be successful. If they're having trouble with their roommate, don't demand that the residential office change them after 2 days. After 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, maybe. But there are parents that want things fixed immediately for their child. And that's not real life. You're in grad school, PhD program, you have a difficult colleague. They don't go away on Tuesday. You should just get along with them on Monday. Guess what? They're still there. They're there 6 months later, they're there a year later. And you have to figure out a way to navigate that. So the biggest trend I see are the students who are allowed to be uncomfortable or have developed those skills in high school of knowing how to be uncomfortable and rebound from their situations without the parents intervening to make it better for them are the ones that not only transition the best is by the end of their first year, they're the ones more comfortable taking risks. They're the ones that are going to take the risk on that summer internship or apply for that job or go on the off-campus study program or take the class that everyone says is so hard that suddenly changes their world and what they want to be. That's where it all begins. Again, we'll go back to where we started today. Your job is to be a cheerleader, an advisor, and a mentor, but you're not the doer. The child is the doer. Yeah.
Talk about how you evaluate the extracurricular activity section, because we hear so much about you want it to be genuine, and there's some kids who are very mature and star play, brilliant writers, and all of that, and there are many kids who obviously accumulate all of this just for school.
Yeah. So the question is, how do we evaluate the extracurricular experience? We're building a community, and every college campus is building a community. And think about what communities need. They need leaders. They need extroverts. They need introverts. They need the worker bees. They need the person who doesn't want to be in the limelight, who just likes to roll up their sleeves and work behind the scenes. They need the person that is totally angular and just wants to dance every single day of their life. And they need the student who's also still figuring out what they want to do, so they might be the one that will come and join 10 different clubs. We have a space, and every college has a space for every type of student. And so when we're looking at the extracurricular activities, sometimes a lot of what we're looking for is the why. Not just that they have a long list. Especially the more educated the families, the financial wealth of the families, the more opportunities the students might have. And that's not a bad thing. That doesn't bias your children in the application process, but it allows us to say, what is the student doing because they feel they should be doing, versus what is the student doing because they sought it out. They chose it, they wanted that to be a part of their life. We look at summer experiences a lot to gauge that. Some students have to have part-time jobs. That's great. Some students are doing community service for the summer, or doing programs or college-level courses. Part of what we're trying to look for, or maybe it's in the supplement that comes out, or in additional information, is or the personal statement, what have those opportunities meant? And also times the teachers and guidance counselors talk about that as well. In the way they talk about a child as a community member, you can tell what their role is. The teachers know if they're the leader, if they're the mover and shaker, they're inspiring everyone to get things done. Or if they're a student who has dabbled a little bit and still trying to figure it out. It's okay. We don't have a template of who the right student is, because we're going to be a community that needs all types. And so when we evaluate the extracurricular activities, we're not impressed by a long resume. We could be, if it's filled with a lot of passion and interest, but we're really trying to figure out who is this person and what do they enjoy. If I met them and I asked them, what do you want to do this weekend? I should be able to understand that from their extracurricular activities, from how their teachers talk about them. And it really just humanizes, once again, the experience. Colleges who are residentials are going to really put a lot more impact on making sure that students know how to balance top-level academics with a rich extracurricular activity. Specifically for Colgate, if any of you have not been there, we are in a rural college town in upstate New York, free-stoplight college town, amazing, incredible campus community, but we are absolutely a lifestyle choice, and we rely on every student we admit to be the energy and vitality in some way of our campus community. So if we're reading an application where the student really does not engage with the community, not because they don't have passion, but they just don't engage, that may not be a good fit for us. And in the long run, even though that means if that's your child that they may not be admitted, they should be at a place that is the right community. And we might not be that. So it does work out because we're focusing on fit. And there are opportunities, the way the teachers talk about it, the extracurricular activities, personal statement, supplement, that we get an idea of how the students feel about those extracurricular activities and what it means to them.
Thank you. We have time for one more question from this gentleman, because we know you have to get in the car and start driving again.
Hi. What is the best way for parents to seek potential scholarships or grants for a child? Do I hire a professional? to do that for me? Do I ask the college about it? What's your input on that?
Yeah, so the question is about how does a parent seek financial support, scholarships, information for their children. I think there's a couple different avenues. When I talked about having that conversation as a family about finances and support for higher education, understand, will you qualify for financial aid? And you can do net price calculators, have conversations with your college counselors, speak to college financial aid offices, because what's going to happen there is one of two things will happen. If you qualify for financial aid, then you will want to be focusing on colleges that offer effective financial, every college will offer financial aid. Do you guys do financial aid?
Yes.
Yes. Your school does financial aid?
It's on the PTA calendar.
Yeah, because there's a whole, the reason I'm mentioning that is we could spend a half an hour on financial aid to our college students right now. But if you know you need financial aid, then you're going to want to look at colleges that are going to do a good job of providing financial aid. Some colleges meet 100% of demonstrated need, like the institution I work for. Some schools don't have the financial aid budgets to do that. Some colleges will be need blind, which means they don't look at your financial need when making admission decisions. If you do that financial aid assessment, you could also show that your family will not qualify for need-based aid, but you have no idea how you're going to pay $60,000 a year. And in that case, you may want your approach to be looking at colleges that would offer academic merit aid if your child would be eligible for academic merit aid. So there are two things to understand. Some financial aid is need-based, based on your family income, your assets. Other financial aid is based on academic merit, talents, athletics, there's a whole variety of what we call merit aid. So it depends on where you fall. And you might pursue both options. If you qualify for aid, you might look for schools that offer good need-based programs as well as merit-based, or one or the other. And then there's a whole nother category of community-based scholarships, like the one that was mentioned this evening by your school. There are going to be other community-sponsored scholarships that you can apply for regardless of whether or not you need financial aid. And they're not linked through the institution or the colleges that you're applying to, but they're simply available within your community. So I think the first place to start is to understand where do you fit in qualifying for financial aid, because that may affect, do you need to look at financial aid policies if I'm qualifying? And if not, then you may just, if you don't qualify that you need money, then you may need to look at merit-based options. And I mentioned that to start the conversation because it's hard to build a list of colleges that are going to be the best fit for your family if you know, because of size of family, income, debt, business situations, that you need a merit-based school. That may very well affect how you approach your college. So great question to ask now. Sounds like you need to start with some general overview of where you might fit in a need-based analysis and then determine the track. But I think the school can offer some great support with that to get started.
And just to add one tiny little piece to attach to Lynn's comments, we, as part of our work with your kids in the groups, is for them to complete some paperwork. One of the questions we ask is, and of course it's in discussion with family, is whether or not they would be in need of any financial aid. So that becomes a part of how we start to talk about lists with them as well when we do our family meeting. Okay, listen, thank you all. Thank you so much, Lynn, for